Welcome again to another episode of Ottawa Exposed. I'm David Krayden, the senior parliamentary columnist for the Western Standard. And I'm really happy to be back here this week. We've had some great comments over the week. And yes, I do read your comments because it's because of readers and viewers like you that I'm on the air talking today. And the Western Standard is publishing. And I'm putting out columns 5 days a week. And it's very exciting. So thank you for your support. Keep watching and tell your friends about this, because I don't want to be just another talking head on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and all the other social media. We've got a lot of people up there today just saying nothing. I want to say something that's pertinent, of interest, and relevant to you. So I'm going to start off today with my last column of the week, so far anyway. I just wrote it this morning. And it's about what Danielle Smith is going through. And I'm just going to briefly refer. This is an incredible situation, of course. And Danielle Smith just yesterday demanded an apology from CBC for stories they have been running suggesting that she was emailing the Alberta Attorney General and either questioning or demanding that cases that were caught up with the COVID-19 lockdown be shut down or reversed or stopped or thrown out of court. This is all based on some emails that the CBC allegedly has seen. Now, the CBC admitted it hasn't seen the emails. The CBC admitted that this is all coming from an anonymous source or sources within the Alberta provincial government. And this, of course, is all a load of crap. When you build a story like this that suggests the Premier's doing improper things, wrongdoing, things that could ultimately lead to the downfall of this Premier, and you base it on anonymous sources, I'm sorry, that's not good enough. That's not enough information to hang a Premier. And what this is a political lynching of Danielle Smith. CBC has never liked Danielle Smith because she has never toed the line in terms of the COVID-19 lockdowns. She said during her leadership campaign that she thought it was just terrible that people were being taken off the ice rink. Private parties were being raided by the city police, the Calgary police, the Ottawa police, and others. She thought it was awful that people were having their rights mown over in the exercise of these lockdowns. And she made that quite clear. I don't think that sat very well with CBC, the state broadcaster, which is always there to bolster the federal government, read Trudeau government narrative. So they, I believe strongly, decided they needed to get rid of Danielle Smith. So this email story is just that. Now, if there actually are people sending emails to the CBC, they need to come forward, have some guts, show a little bit of courage. If you think your story is so important in the public interest, show a little bit of courage and come forth and say, hey, I've got the emails. And the CBC, of course, is saying that they don't want to reveal the names of their sources because it might have professional repercussions. You're darn right. It should have professional repercussions. If these people are lying about these emails, they should be publicly exposed and fired. This should not be happening. And we should not be watching a Premier hang in the wind over these baseless accusations. And I think this is all about politics as usual. It's coming strongly from the federal government. It might be coming from disaffected UCP members. I've heard that possibility as well. But I do believe this is a federal story because I think the federal Liberals are interfering through the CBC. And they have a huge effect on how the CBC reports its news. And when they're going after somebody like Danielle Smith, they're going after them full throttle. And if you read some of the emails that are going out about this, the CBC seems energized and almost joyful that they think they're going to bring down a premier like Danielle Smith, who's had the audacity to pass the Alberta Sovereignty Act and who has said she's not going to stand by and watch all of those who suffered as a result of the COVID-19 mandates and lockdowns to continue to suffer. She hasn't done everything right, but by God, she's doing a lot more right than her predecessor, who was part of the lockdown catastrophe, put pastors in jail, and had people arrested. And you have to remember, you couldn't go to church during the COVID-19 lockdowns. You couldn't go to the gym to work out, which made sense because the healthier you are, the less likely you are to contract COVID or have a serious effect through it. But you could go to the liquor store every day, and there were strip clubs open across Canada. Somehow those places were sacrosanct, and they were there weren't any germs spreading there. But it's the hypocrisy of it all that drives you crazy. And it's time for some real answers to why some of these decisions were made. But the answer is not to go after Danielle Smith, because she's trying to find out some of those answers. I don't believe they're going to find those emails. I think the scandal is going to die. But let the CBC wear it. Let the CBC, the state broadcaster, wear it, because that's where it should be going. Moving right along here. My first column of the week was a discussion about Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre. Justin Trudeau, of course, our Prime Minister, Pierre Poilievre, the official opposition leader, and the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. Now, as I wrote this column, the Liberal cabinet was just preparing to go into a retreat in Hamilton, Ontario, to discuss the year ahead. Now, I'm sure Trudeau brought up the possibility of an election in 2023. There's been no confirm and deny about that. But certainly Trudeau seems a little cooler on that prospect, because apparently at this retreat, he heard some pretty bad news about the economy. Interest rates are going to have a negative effect on people's ability to buy homes, obviously. Inflation is probably not going to be going down, but might marginally go up. And we're looking at a real recession in the offing. Now, Trudeau's down 7% in the polls right now. That could plunge even further if the economy gets worse. And let's face it, this is a guy who does not think about the economy very often. He's doubled the national debt, not deficit, the national debt in 7 years. He's the guy who can't see a business case for selling oil to Germany, or natural gas, to Germany. But he's also the guy who thinks he can win an election on his charm and good looks alone. And I'm sorry, I think that those days are over for you, Justin Trudeau. But what is the next election going to be, whether it happens this year or the next? It's going to be a fight not just between a conservative leader on the right and a liberal leader on the left, who has basically subsumed a lot of the NDP vote with it. It's going to be a battle between Trudeau's status quo and the new ideas and new freedom presented by Pierre Poilievre. And I must say, also the People's Party of Canada leader, Maxime Bernier, who is a good friend, and I give him all due. And it's interesting that Trudeau is playing the same old blame game. He's looking at his popularity declining, and he's saying, can't be my fault. Can't be my policies. It's because Canadians are racist. I can't believe he had the audacity, the craziness to even suggest that. Because, I mean, clearly, it's got nothing to do with racism. But he always reaches out for this reason when the going gets tough. He starts smearing Canadians. He starts smearing his political opponents. And quite frankly, it's really disgusting. And he did the same thing, of course, during the blackface scandal, where he admitted he couldn't even remember how many times he had donned blackface to entertain his friends, his schoolmates, the folks at the college he taught at, and who knows whom else. whomever else was a part of this. But what I liked about what Poilievre said recently, and I think this is very important because I don't trust politicians just because they say something. I want to see evidence. And I noted when Pierre Poilievre accepted the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada, he never mentioned his promise to defund, privatize the CBC. And I was a bit worried because I think this is a very important promise that he needs to move forward on if he becomes prime minister. But in a recent speech in Winnipeg, he reiterated his promise to sell off the CBC, and he talked about making it into family housing, the headquarters of CBC in the family housing, moving people in. Now, that's something, of course, the Liberals and NDP would have difficulty arguing with because they're always saying we need more affordable housing. I have seen over the years that the litmus test for a true conservative leader, for a leader who actually believes in conservative principles and not in just attaining power, they will tell you they're going to sell off the CBC. It truly has become a defining moment for conservatives in this country. And if Poilievre is still talking about it, I believe he will do it. And I think that's going to be a marvelous step forward because I think the CBC has become a millstone around our neck. There's no reason it needs $1 billion in funding every year. There's no reason it needs to be the state broadcaster any more than the federal government should be subsidizing the other broadcasters in this country to the tune of $600 million. So I think that's going to be a very important election coming up. I want to shift now to, I think, what's one of the stories of the month. And I just heard today that this is being picked up by the U.S. media. Glenn Beck just ran a story on this in the United States. And it concerns the maskless woman who was at the Toronto General Hospital. And her name is Danielle Stephanie Warrener. Now, Danielle Stephanie Warrener, I believe, is a martyr for all of the idiocy, the authoritarianism, and the brutality that was wrought by the lockdowns during this COVID-19 pandemic. She stands as a martyr for all of those who lost their lives, their livelihoods, who were forced to take vaccines, who couldn't go to the gym, who couldn't have friends over in their house, who couldn't see their loved ones, who were forced to wear masks outside, who were forced to do things that were not necessarily wise or scientific. Certainly, this woman's horrific experience at the Toronto General should have told us something. She was held to the ground until she received a brain injury, and she died. She was killed. Now, the guards involved in that were initially charged with criminal charges. An Ontario judge decided to drop those charges. So the family of Danielle is coming forth with civil action. You might recall that's what had to happen in the O.J. Simpson case after a jury found him not guilty in the deaths of Nicole Simpson and her friend. They had to seek a civil solution. Now, I ask you this, doesn't this situation of this maskless woman, and there's some reports she had the mask on, but it was just inappropriately being worn, being manhandled by these security guards, forcibly pushed to the ground so she can't breathe. Isn't this sound like the incident in the United States in Minnesota where George Floyd, the black man, who became a symbol for police overreach and brutality, was unable to breathe and died at the hands of those police officers. Those police officers had to face criminal charges, and they were, in fact, convicted. So what happened here? Is this not a very similar incident? I think it deserves a closer look. Certainly, if you watch the video of this woman being wrestled to the ground, it's heartbreaking, because this sort of thing should never have happened. You go to an emergency room, do you not? Because you need immediate medical attention, because your life is in danger. You don't go to an emergency room to lose your life. And certainly you don't expect that to happen in an emergency room. It should be one of the safest places in the world to be. An emergency room should be a place of healing and medical assistance. For this woman, it was not. It was a place of her death. And this incident must resonate with all Canadians and must remind us all that the COVID-19 measures, these lockdowns, these mandates were often recklessly applied, not based on any science, but based on political control. And that's why this woman died. There was absolutely no reason. She didn't even have COVID-19. And this is a complete atrocity. Should not have happened in Canada. And this is something we should be very much aware of and very much condemn. All political parties should condemn this, not just the Conservative Party, which is yet to do it, by the way. And I must say, as bad as I said CBC is, at least CBC had the journalistic integrity to show the video of this woman being wrestled to the floor by the security guards. And at least they have not denied the story. Maybe there is a heart there. But you know, these cold-blooded bureaucrats at Toronto General, they didn't even tell Danielle's family for 11 days what had happened. 11 days. The family had no idea what happened. Once again, ridiculous secrecy surrounding COVID-19 should never have happened. I want to close today with, I think, my most comical column of the week. It didn't get the response I wanted, but hey, there's always next week. But we often talk about the just transition, especially in Alberta, and that refers to how the federal government is going to make it easy or equitable to go from the fossil fuel economy to the green energy economy. So it's going to be a just transition. Guess what? They got it wrong. It's really the Justin transition. It's Justin Trudeau's idea of what is just and fair for people. We've already seen leaked memos that suggest everybody in the green economy isn't going to need green skills, whatever those are. They can always drive the trucks carrying the solar panels, and they can clean the latrines. Now, I mentioned this story in the past, but it strikes me as this is what Trudeau's up to. And he doesn't have a plan for a Green New Deal in Canada any more than Joe Biden, U.S. President Joe Biden, has a plan for the Green New Deal in the United States. It just means stopping pipelines, stopping exploration for natural gas and fossil oil. It just means quitting the energy we have right now that powers a modern economy and somehow moving to this nirvana of a green economy. We're somehow going to be powering our cars by electricity, which, by the way, the electricity comes in many cases from coal-fired plants. There's not a magic source for it. The batteries required for these electric cars require minerals like cadmium and copper, and these are hard to mine. And China and other countries are using child labor to extract these minerals from the earth. Doesn't sound very equitable to me. But it's okay if it's the Green New Deal, because it's all about reducing a carbon footprint, except it's not. It's about changing our economy, changing how this economy works for us, and it's about reimagining our whole society. Do you think we're going to be powering jet planes with electricity or something else within the next decade? But that's what these people are talking about, phasing all of these things out by 2030. And it's madness. It's complete and utter madness. And it's called the Justin transition. And that's what Trudeau has in mind for you and for all of us. And I don't think it's going to work. And I think the jig is up. More and more people are aware that this is something that is fantasy. It's a fable. The Green New Deal is nothing but a fable. And green energy is not going to unfold. We cannot power a modern economy with windmills, electric cars, and solar panels. And besides, China has the market cornered in solar panels. So that's where we are. That's what we're dealing with. And I think we've got to be realistic about the future. So that's all for today. Viewers, thank you again for making this the most popular show on the Western Standard. We're going to be moving to other things, which I can't talk about at the moment, in the near future. But I want you to stay tuned every week. Stay tuned to what we're talking about, because I intend to continue to expose the lies, the mistruths, the absolute mendacity of Ottawa in federal politics and how it affects provincial and municipal politics. But before I leave, I encourage you, become a member, become a subscriber to the Western Standard so you can read my columns every day, and the stories, the news, the opinion pieces of my colleagues at the Western Standard. Subscribe today at www.westernstandard.news. Get on board with the new media. Forget the mainstream legacy media. It's selling off its assets as we speak, and it's going to become a thing of the past. But before it goes there, it wants to try to destroy the new media along with this liberal government. Don't let it. So for Ottawa Exposed, I'm David Krayden, senior parliamentary columnist for the Western Standard. I'm saying goodbye for now, and I want you all to have a very good week. And keep reading.
Canadian Shooting Sports Association. Without the CSSA, our gun rights would have been taken long ago. These guys are on the front lines helping to draft smart and intelligent firearms regulations and legislation in Canada, and more importantly, educating the public about how we keep guns out of the hands of the wrong people. To become a member, it's absolutely worth every penny. You can become a Western Standard member for just $10 a month or $99 a year for unlimited